Wrapping up SEC Media Days with Saturday Down South's Connor O'Gara. It just means more, Connor, more teams. Is conference realignment coming to Hoover in the foreseeable future?
Well, first of all, shout out KSR. Did I do it the right way?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
It feels like it. And we're going to find out more tonight about this meeting that Big 12 officials are apparently going to have. But my goodness, that was one of those headlines that you see and you just kind of wonder, wait a minute, is that real? And then the more you hear people talk about it, and I thought the fact that the SEC network people were so open and honest in discussing that, I thought that was really telling as well. The comment that you heard from Greg Sankey today about, I hope you guys had a nice evening. He knows what he's doing. And there's some smoke here, there's no doubt about it, and it makes a lot of sense for the SEC. And if you're picking apart the carcass that is the Big 12, what piece would you want to have? You'd want to have Oklahoma. You'd want to have Texas. You wouldn't want to have Baylor and TCU and Kansas or something like that. I think that you look at that situation, and that would be a home run for the SEC. I'm on board with it, and it seems very realistic now.
Well, especially with the non-denials of them all, the no comments.
Right.
Awfully suspicious, but like you said, this is something we're going to be talking about for a long time. Putting the realignment aside, because it stole the show. Outside of that, what do you think was the biggest story to come from this edition of SEC Media Days?
The biggest headline, I thought, was the Bryce Young ungodly numbers that he is making off name, image, and likeness. Nearly 7 figures. That's an absurd thing to think about. I mean, you saw Lane Kiffin's reaction. Lane Kiffin is as witty and as charismatic as they come, and he could not get over that NIL money, and even was asked about Jerry Neely's shoulder surgery and then said, sorry, I can't stop thinking about Bryce Young making nearly 7 figures. He hasn't even started a game yet. We're not talking about a guy who's in the midst of a Heisman race, hasn't started a game at Alabama yet, and he's already making that kind of money. That just tells you where we're at with this whole thing, and the potential of it, I think, is fascinating to look at. So I thought seeing that come out, and I know Nick Saban didn't even say that here, but seeing the reaction to it and seeing people talk about it was fascinating. This was a news-heavy week in the SEC and in college football as a whole. And I don't think we usually get that this time of year. A lot of time it's talking season. We're talking about quarterback rankings. And, there was just so much hard news. We had COVID vaccine threshold talk. But the thing that really blew me away most, like Lane Kiffin, was the Bryce Young 7-figure money that he's getting off NIL.
Lane Kiffin, rarely speechless. And we did get that. I think it's certainly probably the most eventful I've been to in 6 or so years of doing this. But I think part of it is because we had a lot of new faces. The event didn't happen last year. The coaches were a little bit more outgoing. Who do you think was your top performer at the podium this week?
It's easy. It's Eli Drinkwitz. It's not close.
Oh.
I give it to Eli. I think that his standing in this league is still kind of being figured out. And maybe because we didn't get media days last year, a lot of people really didn't know kind of what he was like. I had him on the podcast about 4 months ago. I was like, I like this dude more and more every time I hear him. I think he's one of those guys who, a little bit like Stoops in a way, in that he'll kind of call out another coach if he feels like he's being wronged, if he feels like he's being disrespected. I've been saying for the last 8-9 months, I think Eli Drinkwitz is SEC East Lane Kiffin. And there's a case to be made that he's even a little bit more, he'll go for it even more so than Kiffin will. Kiffin kind of has fun with it. Drinkwitz isn't afraid to say, I can't remember the last time that we lost Arkansas.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
I mean, dude
doesn't care. He called out Pete Thamel on Twitter, too.
Called out Pete Thamel on Twitter.
I loved it.
Afraid to say that, I'm happy to be here with some B-list talent. I think he's great. I think the SEC needs more of that. I think we've been so consumed about being politically correct and, afraid to ruffle feathers pretty much ever since Spurrier and Miles have been out of the conference. And now you just look at a guy like Drinkwitz who has a lot of personality. He understands what he's doing. He understands who he is. I think he's one of those coaches who's very aware of who he is, how he's being talked about, and the best way to talk about others. And if you're looking for a coach to root for, man, I'd buy some Eli Drinkwitz stock now while you can.
Well, final question. Between Drinkwitz's Missouri team, Stoops' Kentucky team, and Florida, at first I thought it was going to be who's going to be the next team after Florida and Georgia. And now sounds like it's, okay, who's just the next team after Georgia?
Yeah.
Who do you think the next team is after Georgia this year?
I'm still going with Florida. And here's the reason, because I have Kentucky third. I did my predictions. And I think that 2 through 2 through 4 is really going to be kind of it could be all over the place this year. Maybe even 2 through 5 if Tennessee has some of those moments, maybe with their offense, if they were able to put up some points and catch some teams off guard. But the thing that's holding me back from saying Kentucky can be that second best team, I think that it is hard to overhaul personnel that way and to go from Eddie Grand's offense to Liam Cohen's offense, which we know is going to be much different. It's going to be much more balanced. They have some players to be able to execute that, but from the wide receiver standpoint, I look at Wan'Dale Robinson, I look at Josh Lee. Outside of that, I don't know those options are going to be there. I could see a lot of moments this year in which Liam Cohen realizes this isn't the Los Angeles Rams. And it's a little bit tougher to execute this offense with this group of personnel that they currently have. I think they can build towards that. I like that they made this move. It is a long-term move. That's what it is. I love Chris Rodriguez. He is one of my 2 first-team All-SEC running backs. I think he's worth all the buzz. If you look at some of the PFF numbers with him and even the yards after contact, he is that dude. But I'm just a little bit hesitant. When you don't know the quarterback situation as well, it's hard to sit there and pencil that in as that number 2 spot, which is still probably going to end up being a team that competes for a New Year's Six Bowl as well. So Kentucky not far off Florida. I'm really looking forward to that game this year, but I'd probably still give that number 2 spot to Florida.
Connor O'Gara from Saturday Down South. We appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Shout out KSR.